And then after our webinar is finished, we will be sure to send the recording out. That should take about 1 or 2 business days. Thank you all for being here, joining us for our sponsoring facility panel webinar. My name is Juan Choi. I am here with my colleague, Ranjit Sar. We're both university liaisons. I am the university liaison over at Alabama and Georgia, and Rand is the university liaison in Florida. So we mostly work with colleges and universities in those respective states. I may or may not have seen some of you during my college visits. If so, thank you for joining us. Just as a quick heads up about the format of the webinar, we're just going to go through general SMART things, and then we'll talk about the sponsoring facilities a little bit because we've had a lot of pre-filled questions just on the general things of SMART, sponsoring facilities, and then we will introduce the panel, and they will give more information about their facilities, the type of work that they do, and then we'll go through our Q&A portion, and then we'll close off the webinar. Well, with that said, who we are. So SMART, Scholarship for Service Program, is an education and workforce development opportunity specifically for STEM students. So scholars are sponsored by Department of Defense lab or agencies. These are the sponsoring facilities where scholars transition seamlessly from the college or university education to an impactful employment as a DoD civilian. And I want to highlight that this is all civilian employment opportunities, not to be mistaken for our military counterpart. And SMART offers 2 scholarship opportunities. The first one is our traditional SMART scholarship. This will be for most of you, if not for all of you, since our traditional SMART scholarship is for students currently enrolled at a college or university with previous college experience. And for our Dellins Memorial SMART Scholarship Program, those are mostly for high school seniors, for students with no previous college experience, but intends to pursue a bachelor's degree. But both share our great SMART scholarship benefits, which is full tuition. There's no cap on tuition. SMART will fully fund your tuition. Alongside with that, we'll also provide a generous yearly stipend as a student. There's also a internship component in the summertime, which ranges from 8 to 12 weeks, and this will be hosted in your sponsoring facilities, as well as that guaranteed employment opportunity with the Department of Defense at your sponsoring facilities. There is our eligibility and program requirements. First, you need to be a U.S. citizen, have a minimum 3.0 GPA when you apply, and the duration of your SMART scholarship. Must be pursuing a degree in STEM. You need to be 18 years or older the January following your SMART award. You need to have a minimum of 1 year left in your college pursuit. You will need to obtain a security clearance, complete the summer internship, and then finally accept DoD employment. We've also received a good amount of questions just on the timeline of our SMART Scholarship Program. And just to address some of those questions, our application cycle, we're in that currently. Our application cycle is every year starting from August 1st, and we'll close the first Friday of December. And then after those applications are completed, we will go through selections and interviews from January to March, and then scholarship notifications will go out in April. So just to go over the basics of a sponsoring facility, what is a sponsoring facility? So a sponsoring facility is the lab or agency within the Department of Defense that partners with the SMART program and sponsors SMART scholars from education all the way through employment. For the SMART program, the sponsoring facilities are a large stakeholder in the program, and their role is to review completed applications, interview applicants, and determine who they want to award the scholarship. So essentially, it is the sponsoring facilities, not the SMART program itself, that selects smart scholars. So to give yourself the best chance possible, it's super important to research sponsoring facilities and to make sure that scholar preferences align with preference needs or facility needs. And as you can see in this map, there are sponsoring facilities everywhere. There are 150 agencies all across 40 states. And these sponsoring facilities support missions of Air Force, Navy, Army, and other DoD facilities like the Missile Defense Agency or the National Reconnaissance Office. Applicants can review sponsoring facility information on the SPART website. There will be a tab that'll say sponsoring facilities, and you could filter through locations, sponsoring services, the degree levels, and STEM disciplines that supports and requires the type of facilities they are, like laboratories, intelligence communities, and just to get more information about the sponsoring facility itself, their mission, vision, what they're looking for in a smart scholar, and what life is like at the facility. There's a bunch of information available, and we highly, highly recommend that you go through the sponsoring facilities tab in our website just to do your research. And if you need assistance, have any questions for us, we will have our Smart Teams contact info at the end of the webinar. Also, applicants will have an opportunity to request to be put in contact with a sponsoring facility while completing their application. So you'll need to get your application somewhat completed just to have that feature available. To talk more about that, I will pass it off to Rand.
Thank you, Juan. So this year we have a new feature that is built into the application, which allows applicants to send an inquiry directly to up to 5 sponsoring facilities. And so this feature will become available once some basic information is submitted on the application, along with your resume. This will be available to you once that information is posted in your application or completed in your application. A few tips on how to utilize this tool. So first, we really encourage you to, like Juan said, thoroughly review the website. Some of our sponsoring facilities will include ways on how to contact them directly on our website. And so this feature may not be necessary to use if their contact information is readily available. You can, like I said, contact up to 5 sponsoring facilities here. So it'd be better to utilize that tool with facilities that don't necessarily have contact information readily available. The summary section is the same for each inquiry. So you're not submitting 5 different inquiries. It's just one inquiry that you cannot customize for each location. They're all going to get the same form. And we encourage you to list your questions on there. Do not send it blank because you will likely not receive any contact from the sponsoring facilities if they don't see any questions on there. We recommend that you summarize or your summary kind of identifies your educational and career goals and then poses the questions to the facilities that you've listed or that you would like to contact. And then if you have any program related questions about our policies or procedures, this would not be the right tool. So this tool is best used when you're trying to contact the facilities directly and ask them specific questions. But if there are program related questions, like Juan said, we'll have the contact information you need to contact our program directly with those inquiries. And then finally, just note that our facilities are not obligated to respond to these inquiries, but rather encouraged to respond if they have the capacity to do so. And with that said, I will now pass it off to Monica so she can introduce our speakers for today.
Hi, thank you. My name is Monica Soriano Mitchell, and I am the Naval Component Liaison. And today, our wonderful panelists come from Naval Facilities Engineering Systems Command Southwest. It'll be Miss Cassidy Legg. And then we're going to switch it up, and we will go to Naval Surface Warfare Center, Panama City Division with Dr. Richard Tatum, followed by Missile Defense Agency, and it will be Miss Kimberly Payon. And then hopefully we will close it up with Naval Information Warfare Center Atlantic with Miss Josette Francis. So if I guess we want to kick it off with NAVFAC Exwick in Jacksonville with Cassidy.
Hello, everyone. My name is Cassidy Legg. I'm here representing NAVFAC Southeast from our Human Resources Office. I am NAVFAC's SMART Sponsoring Facility Manager and Point of Contact. If you haven't heard of NAVFAC Southeast, NAVFAC stands for Naval Facilities Engineering Systems Command. NAVFAC does all of the planning, design, construction, and facilities maintenance on every Navy and Marine base around the world. So that includes things like office buildings, barracks, runways, hangars, marinas, all of that kind of things. We also do the training centers. In fact, at our site visit for our recent selectees, we saw a crash training center under construction. It was being renovated, so it was in the middle of construction. We got to see the big pool where they dropped the pod and things like that. So that's the kind of stuff we do, is we build those facilities and we maintain those facilities. This is our first year, going on our second year as a sponsoring facility for SMART. We're very, very excited to have this opportunity. We think it's a great opportunity, not just for the students, but for the sponsoring facilities as well as a recruitment tool. We just selected our first batch of 4 scholars from the 2024 cohort, including 1 electrical engineer, 2 environmental engineers, and 1 cybersecurity specialist. Going forward, we are looking for civil, electrical, and mechanical engineers. And in the environmental realm, we're looking for environmental engineers, environmental scientists, biologists, sort of things in that realm, and then cybersecurity and IT specialists. In terms of what we're looking for when we look through the applicants, I will say, I think last year we had access to something like 5,000 applications. And I think that something that can really help your visibility is actually what Rand and Juan mentioned earlier, was the contact form. And if you're able to, if you know that you're very interested in a sponsoring facility, to be able to select them and have a preference for them, I think that's a great way to increase your visibility amongst all of those applications. That's definitely something you should take advantage of if you can. Additionally, something that we're looking for are, when we look at the applications themselves, are students who are already sort of engaged in their career field, already engaged in that field of study. We had some students who had already had a couple private or public internships, but that's not necessarily exactly what we're looking for. We also had students who had never had an internship yet, but were involved in campus and relevant groups and had already done projects within that field. And I think it shows it shows enthusiasm for that field. It shows that it's something that you're committed to and that you already sort of have some experience. So that, because this is such a big commitment, this program, so it's good to know that that is something that you are already know something about and already invested in. I would say the last thing that we're looking for when we're looking through these applicants is sort of a little tip too down the line in any interview, is going in engaged and going in already knowing something about the organization that you're interviewing with. And knowing about the type of work that they do and showing some enthusiasm for that type of work, I think is always a really good thing, is being engaged in that interview and knowing a little something before you get into it. In terms of the day-to-day for our SMART scholars, so I can't speak practically to that quite yet, because as I said, we have just selected our first interns, so we haven't yet hosted them for their internships. We did the site visit, haven't had the internships yet, but I can say that we are very committed to engaging and project-based internships. We think it's very important to have sort of concrete work for our interns, because I think that serves the students and it serves the sponsoring facility best, because they get to sort of get their hands on, shadow experienced mentors, experienced employees and engineers and things like that. But then we also, once they graduate, we get to bring someone on board who already has some experience with the field, who has some experience with the way NAVFAC does things and the way the DoD and the government does things, because public sector is very different from private sector. So it's good to bring someone on who already sort of has a grasp on that realm of things. So we're actually actively having our mentors and our hiring managers create development plans so that once we have our interns on board, we have sort of a guideline and a standard for how we're going to train them and what sort of projects we're going to have them involved in, because we don't want people to come and shred and file and make copies and things. We want people who can sort of get their hands dirty and with the work. And I think it also benefits the students as well to have a development plan like that, so that they can sort of see what their career trajectory looks like, because it won't just be for the internships. It'll be once they're brought on and have their development, their career ladder promotions and things like that. We do have some positions that are going to have advanced career promotions, and preparing them the best that we can for that, I think, is very, very important. So if you would like to know a little bit more about NAVFAC, the type of NAVFAC Southeast, the type of projects that we do, the type of environment and culture we have, you can look up NAVFAC Southeast on LinkedIn, Instagram, or Facebook and find us there. And that's about it. I'm going to turn it back over to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Cassidy. That was awesome. Next up, we will have Dr. Richard Tatum from Naval Surface Warfare Center, Panama City Division.
Dr. Tatum, can you?
Yes. Oh,
Okay.
there we go. Okay. Thank you. Can you guys hear me? Excellent. All right. Thank you for having me, and just want to say thank you all for joining us. I just wanted to let you know that SMART program is a very wonderful program. It's one of the main ways that we use to attract very good talent, folks that are looking for those advanced degrees that may be working towards those in STEM fields. We use it heavily for that. I am a branch manager at NSWC Panama City, and my branch is S22, which is basically analysis and dynamics. And what we do is we look at things like UVs and which are unmanned underwater vehicles. We try to figure out how to get those things to do certain missions being mine countermeasures, where the mines, how to find them, or sometimes we have to do mining, sometimes we have to do work with expeditionary warfare services. So our base covers a lot of different mission areas, and my branch is in one of those technical departments. We've recently reorged, which is great for SMART applicants, because that means is all three departments that we have, the technical departments, have spread out that S&T all over the base, which is good news. So if you come into one of those departments, you'll get a chance to get your hands dirty with some really nice, challenging technical work. And so I guess what I want to say is, what are we looking for? I think Cassie hit the nail on the head when she said, when you're filling out your applications, what you really want to do is make sure you indicate which warfare center, or which service you're interested in, because that's going to signal to us that if you're interested in, say, Panama City or Carter Rock or a place like that, if you put that there as your first or secondary choice, that tells us you're serious about wanting to come here. And so we look at that. But more specifically, we also like to look at people who are interested in, they're very creative. They excel in problem solving. They're able to express their ideas verbally, which is kind of hard to see in an application, but at least written, we can kind of tell, if you're able to communicate well. That's an incredibly critical skill, something that's sometimes undervalued, but we really think that's important. Why do we say that? Because we want our folks, when they come here, we want them to eventually become leaders in their field, right? So these fields being anything from very basic research-oriented fields like in physics, mathematics, obviously in engineering as well. We like for these folks to grow and one day run their own projects, grab their own funding from program offices like Office of Naval Research, OSD, places like that. We love for folks to be able to sort of grasp their own destiny in their own hands, right? So when you succeed, we succeed. So we try to look for those folks in our applications who are willing to do that. It's also worth mentioning we're in the Panhandle, and so if you are averse to things like beautiful beaches and warm, sunny days in the summer, this may not be the place for you. If you don't like to go outside and and enjoy nature, Panama City might not be it for you. But for those of you folks that do like that kind of stuff, come talk to us. Um, so what does it look like to be a smart scholar at Panama City? Well, there's a couple of things. So as a branch manager, especially a branch manager of an S&T type branch, I get to look at folks who come in. We've attracted a lot of good talent from usually in the Southeast. We've gotten a few folks from up Northeast as well, some from California. And I can tell you it's very fascinating because it's a couple of things that they like to do. We have those folks that love to do hardcore research. And what that means is they're going to be reading papers, they're going to be publishing, they're going to be going to conferences. Those conferences are all over the world. They're also, inside the United States. Recently, we had folks go up to Nova Scotia to an Oceans conference where they presented their work on everything from related to automatic target recognition all the way up to basically autonomous navigation for subsurface vehicles. So it was a great time, but we look for that kind of stuff. There are those folks that say, you know what, I don't want to write papers. That's not what I want to do. I want to get my hands dirty. I want to make that UUV, for example, or something we actually have ground vehicles as well. I want to get in there and I want to, turn the screwdriver. I want to solder things. I want to, design my own circuits. Well, we have that for you too. So we like to encourage those folks to do that as well. Those folks, they never write papers, and we're perfectly fine with that. But they're doing really great work because they're actually doing some really fascinating engineering that we then use to help our fleet out in the missions that they accomplish. So these things can go from at least the type of tasks that you would do. You could be building prototypes. There are those folks that say, well, and I'm one of them, a mathematician by trade. Hardware normally doesn't agree with me. It normally catches on fire or explodes or something terrible. So they don't let me around the hardware too much. But I like math and I like to program. And so I get to, in my past, before I became a branch manager, I got to develop a lot of good simulations, do a lot of good math, write proofs. And it was a lot of fun for me. And there are folks that I work with that do that and enjoy that. There are those folks that love to conduct experiments. They go out into our test pond, or they go out into the Gulf of Mexico, or they go to other warfare centers and participate in tests there, and they conduct really good research that's critical for our S&T. And even when I say S&T, you'll think of things like, we'll say words like 6162. That's that basic and fundamental research, all the way up to 6364, which is that more integration type work. Things are actually getting, if you will, bolted to the ship. So it helping the fleet in a very direct and meaningful way. Let's see. I think I've covered. Okay. And I guess I'd like to say too, if you have any questions, Ms. Pam Furman, who is a most excellent HR representative, she couldn't be here today, so I am trying to fill in for her. She is a good point of contact. She has all the information. If you wanted to get a hold of me, she could tell you how to do that. Or if you have other questions about our facility, she's more than able and happy to help you with that. We also have you easily Google it. We have a Facebook page, facebook.com NSWC-PCD, Naval Surface Warfare Center, Panama City Division. We have a LinkedIn page. We have a YouTube, actually a YouTube channel as well. And we also, if you Google Naval Surface Warfare Center in Panama City, you'll see that. And you'll also see other warfare centers too. So I'd just like to say I'm obviously biased for our warfare center, but we have many great warfare centers Carderock, we have Keyport, we have Newport. If you like the Northeast, we have Warfare Centers there. If you love the Southeast, we have Warfare Centers there. If you love the West Coast, we have Warfare Centers there. San Diego is fantastic. It's a great place to be. So we have places all over. And so we're wanting to encourage folks to really apply, reach out to us if you have questions. We'd love to engage with you. I should also mention too, one important thing is, so what do you do when you first say you get smart, and you graduate and you come here? There's this thing called a smart seed, and I think you guys that may talk about that. So I have a few folks that have come in. They were they weren't retention, we were recruiting, and so they finished up their PhD, and what they wrote was a smart seed proposal once they got here, and it got them funding for a few years. And what the point of that is to allow them to transition from that academic life into more of the type of R&D work that we want them to do for the Navy. And so it's a great program. We've had tremendous success with that. We've had, I think, a total of 4 folks who have been able to get those Smart Seed grants, and done some really fantastic work, done some really groundbreaking research. We've published some papers, we've gone to some good conferences. We've actually done some real good work on some of the assets we have at our base. And so why do I bring that up? Because you may be wondering, once I get smart, or I'm close to finish my PhD, how do I fund myself? Well, we'll help you with that. We'll also help you write proposals when you come in, so you have funding. In addition to that, to what we have, like a pot of money, we call it 219 funding or NICE funding. We'll help you write those proposals and get funding to continue your research, because what we want to do is not have you sit around and as she said previously, shred documents and just read technical manuals all day long and not do anything with that, right? We want you to actually engage in hands-on work, be that on an actual vehicle, or if that's writing software, or thinking about math, or thinking about physics. That's what we want. And I think that's when you're the happiest. And when you're happy, you produce wonderful things, and the Navy benefits from it tremendously. And I think that's about all I've got. So I'll turn my time back over. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Dr. Tatum. That was awesome. And thank you for stepping in for Pam last minute. I really do appreciate that. So up next, we have Miss Kimberly Paone from a Missile Defense Agency in Huntsville, Alabama.
Hi, my name is Kim Paone. I work for the Director for Engineering organization within MDA as our Smart Scholar and MDCDP technical lead. So I'll tell you a little bit more about technical lead or MDCDP in just a moment. But the Missile Defense Agency, or MDA, is a research, development, and acquisition agency within the Department of Defense. Our workforce includes government civilians, military service members, and contractor personnel in multiple locations around the world. The largest MDA facility is in Huntsville, Alabama, with over 4,000 support staff. And Huntsville is our primary location for Smart Scholars, but we also host Smart Scholars in Colorado Springs, Colorado, Dahlgren, Virginia, and Fort Greely, Alaska. We're focused on retaining and recruiting a dedicated workforce interested in supporting our national security, and believe partnering with the Smart Scholarship Program helps us meet that goal. So the mission of the Missile Defense Agency is to develop and deploy a layered missile defense system to defend the United States, its deployed forces, allies, and friends from missile attacks in all phases of flight. As we develop, test, and field an integrated missile defense system, the MDA works closely with our combatant commanders, who will rely on the system to protect the United States, our forward deployed forces, and our friends and allies from hostile missile attacks. We work with the combatant commanders to ensure that we develop a robust missile defense system technology and development program to address the challenges of the evolving threat. We are also steadily increasing our international cooperation by supporting mutual security interests in missile defense. We at MDA are committed to developing and retaining highly qualified personnel with the skills, abilities, and motivation to grow professionally and developing individual competencies. And MDA strives to implement initiatives to support that competency-based development efforts, fostering a diverse, mission-ready workforce. As SMART scholars, you would participate in the Missile Defense Career Development Program, or MDCDP. And the MDCDP is a 3-year development program for entry-level employees that is constructed to provide a variety of technical acquisition and training experiences within your career field. There are developmental rotations or on-the-job training, and that would be at least three of those during that 3-year period, 3 one-year rotations. And your functional managers and supervisors help you to develop a meaningful rotation program that it will be focused on your career goals. There also would be a standalone project that is completed during each of those rotations. There's also, as part of MDCDP, we have a developmental training program. The 3-year curriculum plan provides competency development to the CDPs with mandatory and optional components that include seminars, formal classroom training, on-the-job training, and rotations at MDA operational sites. So this past year, we had CDPs that would spend 2 weeks in Fort Greely, Alaska, contributing to the program there and learning about the site and what we do in Fort Greely. Also, as part of the developmental training program, there's mandatory DAU, early immersive leadership program that we have, and soft skill training that you'll participate in throughout those 3 years. And then finally, that last tier is our mentor relationships that we develop. So during the 3 years, you'd be paired with both a peer mentor and a senior mentor. And those are just to help evaluate and direct your career paths, investigate opportunities, and help with professional and personal growth. So if selected, SMART scholars within MDA are assigned to functional organizations. So those could be the quality and mission assurance group, test organization, engineering, which is where I am, or information systems. And you would be assigned there and spend your 3 years working within that organization, rotating within there, and providing support to our programs. So to provide a little bit more detail, I'm going to focus on DE just for a moment, but our engineering group. So since 2017, our MDA DE team has selected 85 SMART scholars. And they've joined our core engineering workforce and supported engineering organizations across MDA. These SMART scholars have represented nearly 30 different universities, and we primarily focus our recruitment on bachelor's and master's candidates with the following STEM disciplines. So aerospace, computer science, and computer engineering, electrical engineering, industrial and systems engineering, mechanical engineering, software, chemical and materials engineering, and cybersecurity. So we're not limited to those, but those are where we focus. And so currently we have 41 DE employees that were formerly SMART scholars contributing to our MDA mission. So feel like our agency has had great success in training entry-level engineers to develop skill sets to contribute to the MDA mission hand in hand with the SMART Scholarship Program. So you're welcome to visit our public homepage, which is www.mda.mil, and you can learn about the history of MDA, the MDA system, and our mission, core values and goals there as well. And on the slides, it will have Lisa's contact information, who is our she has a wealth of knowledge and resources about MDA, and she could also get you in contact with me if you have further questions. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Kimberly. That was awesome. And then finally, we have Miss Josette Francis from Naval Information Warfare Center Atlantic in Charleston, South Carolina.
Good afternoon, prospective Smart Scholars. I am from Nywick Atlantic. We are located, and it's Naval Information Warfare Center, but commonly known as Nywick Atlantic. And we are located near Charleston area. At Nywick Atlantic, one of our main focuses are to design and acquire engineering and sustain full range IT capabilities, from communication systems and sensors to data centers and software services. We help strengthen our nation by supporting the Navy, Marine Corps, and joint programs who rely on us to deliver secure, integrated, and innovative solutions to protect American interests around the world. When we're looking to select smart scholars, our priority STEM disciplines are computer science and engineering, electrical engineering, data science and analytics, and information sciences. We focus on building our force with a lot of the those who are going into their master's or PhD programs. We like to look for specialists who possess advanced skills and experiences in cybersecurity, ethical hacking, cloud computing, big data, data science, machine learning, RF communications. Those are just among the different areas that we like to focus, or we look for candidates who are interested in doing research. We do a lot of selections for those who are interested in doing research to focus on future goals that the Navy have. We're looking for those who wants to solve the problems that we don't recognize as current problems. If that's one of the things that they're always talking about. What is a future problem that you can help start us to work on that solution? Because we're always working on trying to be 5 and 10 years ahead. We need to be able to know what can be future problems so we can start working on that. And that's what they like to focus on when they're looking at those who are willing to want to do research. And as part of the multidisciplinary team that you will be on, you'll be responsible for solving the technical problems to address critical needs of the U.S. Navy and to ensure that capabilities that you can address the current and future operational challenges. Now, one of the things is the life of a scholar at Nywick Atlantic. When you come to Nywick Atlantic, you will be part of a multidisciplinary research center. And in that center, we conduct the research and rapid prototyping efforts that will be supporting our naval information warfare missions. We place strong emphasis on encouraging and investing in creative solutions to the Navy and the Marine Corps' toughest operational challenges. Our smart scholars are paired with mentors and integrated with research teams based upon their expertise and interest. And most often, we're able to make significant contributions. And one of the examples of that is one of our smart scholars, while they were still doing the internship, they were paired with one of our program managers and project managers that was located in NASA. And before that scholar even came on, they already had a patent that was going through the system, and that patent did get awarded by the time they came on, because it does take a couple of years for that. And that specific scholar has gone on to win the Dr. Eder Scientist Award. So there's a lot of opportunities that you can be engaging on, a lot of projects, working towards patents. That's another thing that we focus on, and we encourage our scholars to be a part of that program that we have, and to pair them with mentors and the program in the sections that they're in with supervisors that will encourage and promote them to be able to be successful in those areas. At the Nywick Atlantic Lab, you'll also be chartered to engage in education partnerships for academic research initiatives in collaboration with our local universities, and providing unique research opportunities and key technologies to areas that you have strength and focus in. And the purpose of that is that we want to continually maintaining that connection with our local and regional universities, encouraging them to want to come and be part of our workforce at Nywick Atlantic, and also encouraged to help develop the future of these STEM areas with the connecting with the schools and encouraging them to come into this field and also into the SMART program. Another thing is coming to work at Charleston. Charleston and Norwich Atlantic and Charleston, we have been voted the best place to work for several years in a row by our posting carrier. There's a lot of exciting things to do at Norwich Atlantic. We're also close to the beach. You also have a lot of history, and there's also opportunities once you come to work at Norwich. We allow some of our interns, depending on what project that you align to, you may be able to travel overseas. We did have some of our students, they were participating in the international internship this summer, and they were able to go to Italy. So there's many different opportunities that can be had, and Charleston is really excited to have you apply into the SMART program. And if you're interested, and if you have any interest and want to know any more information about Norwich Atlantic, we are on the socials. We have a TikTok, we have LinkedIn, and we also are on YouTube. So if you have any questions, I'm available. Please reach out to ask. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Josette. I think what we can do now is move on to the Q&A portion. So if you have any questions, please certainly put them in the chat. And Megan, do you want to, I guess, address the first question that's in there?
Yes. So we had a couple of questions that were submitted to our team right before this session. So I'm going to try to get to as much of them as possible. We are going to stop about 5 minutes to the top of the hour. So I will go ahead and get started. The first set of questions are kind of directed towards the sponsoring facilities. So our sponsoring facilities, as I ask the questions, if you want to jump in and give any feedback, and then if we have time, we can jump into our general questions. So, and then last thing, if I don't get to any of your questions, feel free to email smart@smartscholarship.org for general questions. If you have any questions specifically for our sponsoring facility POCs, I encourage you to use the contact request form within the application. All right. So first question, can you explain what the internship would look like in your facilities?
I'll take a stab at it.
Thanks, Richard.
So for us, the way it works is we bring folks in, we try to have project work laid out for them, try to pair them with groups that have similar interests to what the folks are doing their research on. So that could be anything from, so just from my perspective, I do a lot of autonomy work and decision making and analysis type things. And so if you were to say come into my branch, I would either pair you with somebody who's working on, say, a controls type problem. Controls is important in the sense of how does a vehicle operate if you want it to go from point A to point B. Controls handles that. Maybe you are interested in autonomy development or algorithm development. So maybe you have an optimization background. And so in that case, I would pair you with a group that does a lot of work on optimization type work, either on the vehicle, or we actually have planning aids for different missions, and I would pair you with those folks. And what you would do is I think it's like next 8 to 12 weeks, I forget the time, I think you guys can correct me. You would work with those folks and try to make contributions in software, sometimes in hardware. At the very end of that, you would write up what you did. You provide, sometimes people write papers. I think Josette mentioned that she had some folk, or had a person do a patent application, but we'd have you document that and present that to our branch, and even a wider audience, showing what you did for the summer before you ended. So that's kind of how we would do it in Panama City. Over.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to give feedback? Okay. I will move to the next question. How important is recent research and academic experience for your selection process?
Can I take that one?
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
All right, thanks. I'm not trying to be that guy who's like always jumping up there, but it's important for us, right? So if we see someone who is very well integrated into their lab with their major professor, and they have interest in the work that we're doing, we take that in consideration. But we're not also, I mean, we're not going to just say, oh, this person has never done any research whatsoever. We're not going to like, spend any time with them. We're not interested in them. We also look at your extracurricular activities too, right? And kind of like what you're into. For us, we look for folks who may be interested in doing robotics as a hobby, right? Maybe you do, there's this thing called robot operating system or ROS. People as hobbyists play with that. And so we look at those kind of things too and say, okay, this is a self-starter type person. We like that, and so we want to try to grab that person. We try to use SMART primarily for advanced degrees in Panama City. That's not a 100% true rule. But that's kind of like in our department, we like to see folks going for those masters and PhDs because those folks are the folks who are going to be doing a lot of critical research down the road, and they're going to be shaping the Navy, the next 10 to 30 years. And so we really like to try to like snag those folks. So if you have that research experience, we like that, but it's not, if you don't have any, don't apply. That's not true at all, because we can, if you write on your resume the things that you're doing outside of what you're doing in school, those kind of interests, we really consider those as well. Over.
Thank you. All right, next question. What types of positions does your facility offer? I guess this question is, once they finish their phase one, they transition after graduating, what type of positions are SMART scholars being put into?
I can sort of speak to this. So I will say we have several different directorates. So I said earlier that we have an environmental division. So we're looking for biologists, natural resources scientists, environmental scientists, engineers, and things like that. We also have planning, design, and construction, as well as a public works department. So we have engineers for civil, mechanical, electrical engineers for all of that. We also are, I forget what it's called. Sorry, it's the type of engineer that does like fire safety. So they'll do like fire alarms and things like that. Those are very hard to find. I've got a department here that's asking for them every year that we do this. And then we have in our CIO, that's our IT department, where we look for cybersecurity. Essentially, everybody who is going to come in through this program is going to be in a ladder position, which means that they're going to get essentially a promotion every 6 months to every year up until they're fully promoted. So those are the types of career progression that you can anticipate when you probably for all of our commands probably have some sort of career progression like that. So those are the types of careers that you're looking forward to, because it's not just an entry level job. You'll be developed up into a full performance level position. So
Thank you. Anybody else want to chime in? All right. So next question. Are there any projects, any favorite projects that your facility has worked on that maybe have been memorable that you've worked on with the Smart Scholar?
Josette from Norwich Atlantic. I'm thinking back to one of my first projects. Well, when I first started working with the SMART program, and one of the first projects that was at my agency, it was a goggles. They created these type of goggles, and this was 5 or 6 years ago. I think when Google was just first starting out to do the imaging with the goggles. And this was a project where they were able to, and not trying to share too much information, but it did go through the Pentagon and they did win an award. But this was a goggles that they created with our smart scholars, 2 of the smart scholars, where they were able to see a target that was like maybe I'm gonna say 100 feet, but it was probably further than that with these goggles, because I'm on the outside looking in and just in awe and how cool it was. But it was something that I saw go from the prototype all the way to a finished product that they can now turn over to our customer, which were the Marines, and they were able to carry this with them out and test it out in the field. And now they're able to use these goggles to be able to get sight targets, and the targets they were able to get a visual photo, have that scanned into a system to now identify who these targets are. And I just thought it was such a cool project. That's just one of the real cool projects that I know that 2 of our smart scholars participated in. And so we have many opportunities like that for you all to participate. And then you have the opportunity to create your own idea. And if that idea goes and it aligns, we're willing to put, some effort into assisting you and pair you with teams that want to push that idea forward and see if that prototype could be something that we can now turn over to the warfighter. So that's what I have. Thank you. That's fine.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, real quick, I just that was awesome, by the way, Josette. That was really cool. I've had a few. I won't take a lot of time. Just they're kind of like autonomy really, and one really sticks out is not. I had one smart scholar who did some quantum work for us, which was fascinating to me because I'm not a quantum expert at all. I'm not a physicist. I'm a mathematician. Mathematicians and physicists have interesting relationships with each other. But this smart scholar is just truly phenomenal. Did some quantum machine learning, which is combining 2 things that I just didn't think was possible, right? To do some really fascinating things that have a lot of application to things like automatic target recognition. And they just recently had some very successful tests on one of IBM's quantum machines where they got for this test like something like 96% accuracy, which was blew us away. We didn't expect it to do that well in the recognition part. So that's one. Another one which kind of sticks out is this fellow who did work on basically mapping icebergs, right? So having an autonomous vehicle do these elliptical type trajectories to kind of like map the ice. ONR is getting interested in, or has been interested in our ice on the planet and how to deal with it. And that was fascinating. And I had the third one who basically was trying to figure out how to make vehicles surface safely in high traffic areas. So if you have an underwater vehicle who's trying to like go up and basically get GPS updates, you don't want it to do that right underneath a cruise ship. So because we tend to lose those vehicles when they do that, and it tends to upset the passengers who are trying to have a vacation. Not that we're putting those vehicles in those kind of areas, but so he was able to come up with some really fascinating algorithms to do just that. So over.
Thank you. So we have a couple of general questions that I'm going to address regarding the sponsoring facilities. So one question, how should we choose our sponsoring facilities? So our recommendation is to go to our Smart Public website. There's a sponsoring facilities page, and you can drill down based upon the type of degree that you're pursuing, the STEM degree, the component that you're looking at, and it'll give you a description of all the facilities that meet your criteria, and you can do a little bit more research from that point. And then if you have more questions after that point, you can use a contact request form to get in touch with the facility to answer any questions that you may have, and they can reach out to you that way. So that's my recommendation. Do your research, ask questions. You can also utilize the component liaisons as well if you do have any questions that are kind of on the higher level, we can help assist. So another question, when will participants be revealed? So we do start doing announcements in April, and then we will continually be giving out awards throughout the summer as well. So keep an eye on your email for any emails from SMART, any updates as well, and we will contact you and let you know if you have or have not received that award. Will there be a webinar for sponsoring facilities from a wider area? So this is the first time we've done this. I think that it was very successful, and hopefully we will be able to do these more often. And it's all dependent upon participation from sponsoring facilities, but hopefully within the next year or so, we can gather more participation from facilities to do this. And it's a regular thing for different areas of the United States. All right, Rand, did you want me to cover any other questions?
No, I think you covered it all. Thank you, Megan. And thank you to our speakers as well today. So just a couple of things that we wanted to let our attendees know of. We do have some upcoming events, upcoming webinars. So if you scan the QR code on the page right now, you'll be able to see all of our upcoming events. And the two that I wanted to highlight, one is the sponsoring facility focus webinar, which is coming up next week on October 8th at 1 p.m. And this will be a great webinar for you to learn about more sponsoring facilities that we work with. It's also an interactive Q&A session where we'll clarify the ins and outs of the program, and discuss the application process and answer any questions that you may have at that time. And then we also have our Let's Hit Submit webinar, which is coming up on November 6th, also at 1 p.m., where we'll provide some strategies for applicants to finalize and submit their application. You'll also gain some insights about any common mistakes that you should avoid, last-minute check-ins, and how to ensure that your application stands out from the crowd. So we encourage you to participate in these webinars so that you could equip yourself with the knowledge that you need to submit a successful application. And you can register directly on our website. If you're not able to attend due to scheduling conflicts, you'll still receive a link with the recorded session if you register. And last but certainly not least, you can connect with the program on social media. We are constantly sharing information and stories about our scholars, providing important program information, and showcasing some of the sponsoring facilities work. So you can connect with us on Facebook, X, LinkedIn, Instagram, or YouTube. I know we mentioned that you can also contact our program with any program-related questions. So you can reach us at smartscholarship.org for those inquiries. And for any information about the sponsoring facilities, you can contact our component liaisons at smartscholarship.org. Again, the deadline is December 6th this year, and the application is on our website. I would like to thank all of our speakers today. We really appreciate the wealth of knowledge that you shared with the attendees today, and we look forward to doing this again next year. Thank you all so much for joining, and have a wonderful day.